Today you're going to be looking at multiplying special products. This is lesson 510 in the book. Special products has to do with using FOIL, which you just learned in the last lesson. In FOIL, what we were doing was looking at multiplying a binomial times a binomial. And what you learned was if you multiply the first, x times x is x squared. The outer, x times negative 2 is minus 2x. The inner, 2 times x is plus 2x. And the last, positive 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. The next step was to combine the terms, like terms in the center. And in this case, we wind up with a final simplified answer of x squared minus 4. So when we use FOIL, in these cases, take a look at what you're seeing and ask yourself, what patterns do I notice? You might stop the video here for a moment so that you have time to think about and look for patterns. Okay, so hopefully what you noticed was that in each of these cases, the first term was the same, x times x, 3 times 3, 3x times 3x. The second term was the same, 2 times 2, x times x, and 5 times 5. Although, hopefully you also noticed, the signs were opposite. So what winds up happening is, when you go to combine the like terms in the middle of the FOIL, they add up to 0. And so your final answer becomes a binomial. And in that binomial, the first term is a square, the last term is a perfect square, and you are subtracting them. This is a very special pattern. It's called a difference of squares. The product of the sum and difference of two terms is the square of the first term minus the square of the second. So here we have the product, and here we have a sum of two terms, a difference of two terms, and their product will be the square of the first term minus the square of the second term. You should memorize this formula and you should recognize it whenever you see it. If you forget it, you can always use FOIL, but it'll be a very helpful shortcut. Let's do a few together. I'm going to do these silently, and you might try and do them on paper and compare what you've done to what I've done. If you need to stop the video so that you can follow along, that's fine. For this second one, I'm not going to show all the steps. I'm going to use the shortcut. See how much faster it is? This time I want you to stop the video and solve all 4 of these problems. When you're done, you're going to restart the video and I will reveal the answers so that you can check them. Go ahead and stop the video now so that you can do your work. Okay, let's check and see if you got them correct. Problem number 1, you should have gotten x squared minus 81. Number 2, you'll notice when you square x squared, you get x to the 4th minus 49. Number 3 is 9t squared minus 25. And number 4 is 4x squared minus y squared. So that's a very special pattern called difference of squares, and you should learn it and know it. Let's take a look at something that causes confusion sometimes. When I look at 5 plus x squared, how is that different to 5x squared? Hopefully you're thinking and remembering this idea. If there is a sum, then it's a binomial. If there is no sum, then it's a polynomial or a monomial. And when we have a monomial, this is going to be distributed let me back up. When we have a binomial, we can't just square the 5 and square the x. We need to do 5 plus x times 5 plus x and use FOIL. So if you get confused, write it out. All right, we're going to look at a new pattern now. Again, using FOIL, I want you to look at this pattern. You may want to stop the video so that you have time to really study it. Find as many patterns as you can. When you're ready, continue the video. Okay, let's talk about some of the things you should have noticed. The first thing you should have noticed when you're squaring a binomial is that all the terms are the same in the first and second factors. The signs are also the same. So when we do FOIL, we get x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 4. In this case, instead of the two terms canceling each other out, what we're seeing is the same thing twice in every case. And then, of course, the last term is a square. So just like before, our first term squared, last term squared, but in the middle now, we do have a different term. The question is, what's the pattern in that term? And hopefully by now you've recognized that what we're actually doing here is we're taking a times b and doubling it. So this special pattern is called squaring binomials. And when we square binomials, we are taking a squared plus 2 times a times b plus b squared if it's a sum. If it's a difference, we're actually doing a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So these are two patterns and rules that are also useful to know and useful to use. And as you practice, I want you to begin to notice and understand how they work. So let's take a look at this first example. So for example, if I'm doing an addition, x plus 3 squared is going to be a squared, since my a is x, x squared, plus my outer would be x times 3 and my inner would be x times 3. So 2 times 3x is 6x. I'm doubling a times b. And then my last becomes 9. It's a lot easier to do this if we think of this as a and this is b and just double it. In the second equation, I'm going to have t squared at the front. And then, if I multiply a times b, I get negative 5t. When I double that, it becomes minus 10t. And in the end, when I do 5 times 5, I'm going to get positive 25. So it's important to remember that with the subtraction. Your last term is positive because you're squaring a negative. Here I'm going to have 4t squared, so I have to distribute that exponent to both terms. Then 2t times 7 is 14t. When I double it, it becomes plus 28t. And then square 7, I have plus 49. I've just used those patterns to solve those problems pretty quickly and efficiently. All right, again, you're going to try it here. I want you to stop the video so you have time to do the work, write your answers out, and then restart the video to check them. Okay, so here are the answers. Take a look, see if you've got them correct. If you've missed an answer, go back and see if you can figure out what did you do wrong. So that's the two special patterns for today. One is difference of squares, and one is called perfect square binomials. They come from lesson 510 in the book. So for your homework, I want you to read through the lesson, study the examples. It'll help refresh your memory. And then for homework, you're doing page 247, 248, 1 to 45, every other odd. So start with 1, skip 3, do 5, skip 7. Bring this work with you to the next class, and we're going to go over foiling and special products in our next class.